When trying to identify the driving factors for 5G, the first one has to be related to the eMBB, the Enhanced Mobile Broadband, the data aspects, the throughput aspects. Now, if we look back at legacy technologies, starting with the original sort of 2G systems, the first digital systems there, you can see the actual data rates were minuscule, approximately 9 kilobits per second. Now, as we've evolved, and what I mean by that is 2G evolved, it added edge, enhanced data for global evolution, increasing that data rate. We then jumped into 3G, where we added, again, some what they call wideband CDMA technology to give us a boost and bigger channels. And we added features that you still see today on 3G networks, which is high-speed packet access and high-speed packet access plus, little H plus on your phone. The idea is that data rate increases. But just because you have a device, a technology supporting these, doesn't necessarily mean you get that data rate, because it all depends on the loading in the cell and the amount of users. We then evolved into 4G LTE, long-term evolution there, and we've enhanced that. So you can see that data rate keeps on going up and up. And more specifically, we're now at the sort of point where we're saying we're introducing 5G. Now, 5G can do everything that 4G can do. And in some scenarios, it might be giving you a sort of equivalent level of service, but 5G is more spectrally efficient. There's more options, there's more flexibility. And as such, we're going to have the average throughput is going to be improved. Now, you might say, well, actually, my 4G system can give me 1 gigabits per second. Well, in some scenarios, it can. But we're talking about averages here across the whole of the network. And the key thing is 5G hasn't stopped there. It's going to keep on evolving. So we've now deployed things like 5G Advanced, and you can see that figure on average is going to go up. That's the idea, at least. But it's up to the service providers to engineer that. So what I mean by that, the operators in the network, they've got to decide what is the target rate in certain geographical environments. So throughput is one key driver for 5G. We also can look at coverage. So we could look at having coverage in remote locations. We can think about coverage for scenarios where there's large crowds. Now, we already do that with some indoor venue solutions and using 4G, but the idea is it's going to be better with 5G because 5G has more flexibility, more capacity. 4G also has an element of mission critical services, emergency-based services. Again, they can be transported into 5G. And again, 5G has even better capabilities when it comes to supporting some of these services. A driver for 5G could also be related to throughput related to services and features. And what I'm trying to illustrate here is if we look at the current sort of split of traffic, we've got a lot of video content going across our 4G and our 5G systems potentially. Other types of traffic, again, that might be related to other services, other apps, etc. But then you've started to see the inclusion of generative AI. So generative AI is where we're using AI to generate either text, images, videos, and typically that involves some interaction and some providing some information in the uplink direction. So over time, we expect to see that generative AI model increase and increase and increase. Now, as that happens, that's going to change the split of traffic a little bit, because what we might have today is a lot of people downloading a lot of video and a little bit of uplink based on the different apps and the gaming and various other attributes. But with generative AI type traffic, what we have is users pushing data into the generative AI solution, possibly images, videos, and then asking it to create some new content. So therefore, there's going to be more upload than there was historically in traditional data solutions effectively. So we need to be thinking about that and how that might impact our deployments as 5G and how we might have that capacity, that uplink capacity added to the solution. Another key driver for 5G is related to the massive machine type communications, connected devices. And that might be related to things like smart cities, so connected devices within a smart city. And it's not just devices that have eMBB capability, it's the idea that they are more low powered potentially, depending on the service. Sensors around the smart city, for example, could be there as well. You then start aligning it to other solutions. So, for example, anything connected. So it could be related to retail solutions, tracking certain information, and it could be tracking trolleys moving around the shop, for example. Loads of different permutations there for the retail environment. We're already getting sensors in things like agriculture coming in, so they could be looking at water and temperature and humidity, etc., associated with the different requirements. So again, we already see this as part of sort of 4G evolution, but 5G goes a little bit further in terms of capabilities and aligning itself with the 5G operator. We're seeing elements of healthcare coming in with respect to monitoring patients, for example. So again, devices that are some form of battery-powered devices there. Manufacturing is a big process associated with machine-type communications. And again, some of those sort of align themselves to massive machine-type communications. Some of them align themselves a little bit more towards the ultra-reliable low latency communications. We've got the connected home sort of environments. Now, we already see that using things like Alexas and various other Ring cameras, connected devices. But the idea is we might have scenarios where we want to, instead of using the Wi-Fi standard, we want to be using a 5G standard to provide that connectivity. V2X, vehicle to everything, has a requirement for various aspects. So it could be related to the safety of a car, but that's not going to typically be massive machine type communications. The massive machine type communications element will be typically related to things like tracking of assets, tracking of vehicles, for example, in a fleet. And then we also align ourselves with other sensors related to smart grid. So some of the sensors that you could have around your infrastructure, and the list goes on. And it's worth pointing out that there has been an evolution of 4G, and some of the 4G standards have been brought into 5G. But the idea is, as part of the ecosystem of 5G, we have lots of use cases for massive machine type communications. The final scenario is ultra-reliable and low-latency communications. And this is where 5G can excel. You have to engineer it to excel, but it can excel because the standards allows it to have a lower latency and more reliability. And this aligns itself very nicely to the manufacturing and industry 5.0 scenarios. So providing connectivity to robots and various systems and interaction between systems within a factory environment. And the key thing there is we can leverage the low latency, which is all about the scheduling of the air interface. It is better than 4G. 4G can't do what 5G can do with respect to low latency communications. We also have low latency requirements for certain solutions like V2X. So within the V2X environment, we'll discuss that in other videos later, but you can think about connected devices within the car, the infotainment system, the telematics, but we also need to think about vehicle safety, communication, and therefore low latency is critical for a moving object. And therefore 5G ticks that box nicely. It was already in 4G, but 5G does it better. And the last example here, remote robotics, uncrewed aerial vehicles, different scenarios there. There's quite a huge use cases that are using these uncrewed aerial vehicles, where it could be related to agriculture, defense, healthcare, different use case scenarios. As well as scenarios with disaster recovery and things like that. And it's, again, this ability to control things is very important. So it's not just about the data feed, the eMBB data feed, it's the control, which is the thing that ultra-reliable low latency communications give you. It gives you that extra control above and beyond what would be a standard 4G system or even a standard 5G system. Now, as part of the driving factors for 5G, we have to think about the legacy technologies and the fact that they're getting switched off. as well. So when you start looking at legacy technologies, we could start by going all the way back to 2G, second generation, and you can see they're starting to be switched off. And you can say by 2030, we're not going to have 2G systems available. Now, there's reasons for doing that. One is we want the spectrum for 5G, for example. In addition to that, 2G still has some weak connections with respect to things like security, and therefore we want to make sure that we don't have those vulnerabilities still in the network. So 2G is on the decline. 3G, again, also going down and down and down, and potentially some networks have already switched off their 3G network. So this is because they've been pushing and evolving their 4G deployments. And what we're now seeing is with the introduction of 5G, we're getting less and less 4G based subscriptions. The idea is that the majority of the time people are on 5G. Now that will depend on which operator, which country you're in deploying the 5G solution. But what we would see over time is more and more and more and more uptake with respect to the devices camped on the 5G standalone based system. Now, what we will see over this time frame is this introduction of 6G as well. So we've got to be mindful that 6G will come and it will start taking some of those subscriptions over. And it will vary depending on which country you're in. It might have an influence based on the government, and the government might be saying you need to switch off 2G and 3G. And you might be looking at new spectrum, radio spectrum, which will then also influence your 5G rollout decision. So there's quite a lot of factors that will influence how this will look on an individual operator basis. But as long as you're aware, the trend is 5G is going up, 4G is going down. And as such, what we need to do is we need to sort of position ourselves. But some networks aren't jumping too early because there's still a lot of time left within the 4G system. And some networks are saying we don't need 5G yet. 4G's got more than enough bandwidth. It's only when you start looking at some of those niche use cases that we've mentioned that you start thinking about, well, actually, we do want 5G for that scenario. And let's start making that transition.